of President Mohamed Deby. Chief Rather Aziganya Teg elaborates.
It boils down to the question of which type of democracy we are implementing. A democracy where somebody is called an opposition against a certain government in itself breeds confusion, breeds conflict. And so a government will see the other opponent as a threat. And actually, this democracy that we are practicing, some of them are tied to tribalism and friendship, not because a nation must develop in diversity. In respect of our diverse backgrounds, a nation must devolve.
Leading Kenyan lawyer and the country's former Justice Minister Martha Karua says no reasons were given for her deportation from Tanzania. Karua says this prevented her from attending the court case of opposition leader Tundu Lissu. Lissu, who is the leader of Tanzania's main opposition Chadema party, appeared in court yesterday facing charges of treason. Karua says it's clear the orders for her deportation came directly from President Samia Suluhu Hassan.
Her true colors have come out because she made a statement herself last evening, saying that invaders had come from other countries without giving names, and that they had come to cause disunity in Tanzania after spoiling their own country. And she said she will not allow such people to enter Tanzania. So it's quite clear that these orders were from her.
Fighting has broken out between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces in the city of Omdurman across the River Nile from the capital Khartoum. The army says that it's close to clearing the RSF from the whole of Khartoum state more than 2 years after the civil war began. The BBC's Will Ross has the story.
Omdurman has been the scene of heavy fighting throughout the 2-year war. Streets, homes, schools and shops are littered with ammunition and missiles, some of which are unexploded. The Sudanese army retook the capital in March and is still trying to secure all of Khartoum state. But that doesn't necessarily mean peace for the millions of civilians trying to rebuild their lives in the ruins. The Sudanese Air Force used to dominate the skies, but the paramilitary rapid support forces recently changed tactics and by using drones have been causing havoc in areas they don't control.
South Africa's Department of Home Affairs says it has no legal obligation to formulate legal representation for undocumented foreign nationals in the country. The department was updating the Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs on issues of state-funded legal representation for undocumented foreign nationals. This includes its work in collaboration with the Department of Social Development on foreign individuals, including children who are migrants in the country. Western Cape Home Affairs Department Provincial Manager Yusuf Simons elaborates.
The Legal Aid Board, Chair, through the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, facilitate this entire process. So DHA, Home Affairs, is not involved in any way in arranging or facilitating their legal representation, Chair. So on this point, clearly it's not a function of the Department of Home Affairs for state-funded legal aid for foreign nationals. That resorts solely and squarely with the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development.
The Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar has rejected the criticism by Britain, Canada and France of Israel's intensified military offensive as wholly disproportionate. Gaza's health ministry says that Israeli airstrikes have killed at least 50 Palestinians today as Israel continues its bombardment of the Strip despite mounting international pressure to stop military operations and allow unimpeded deliveries of aid. Sa'ar had strong words for the critics.
What I want to tell to every country, mainly those who had colonial past, this is a proud nation, an independent nation, fighting on its existence, and we will not get any dictates from outside with regard to our national security.
Recapping the top story this hour, CEO of Afro-Continental Union Consult, Dr. Benjamin Aziginateg, says tribal politics are continuing to dominate in Chad. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo-Webe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Good afternoon. In our sports headlines, CAF and EU multi-million pact is to discover more gems in African schools. I'll be back at the bottom of the hour with the details.
It is a very good afternoon to you, Ghana. Good afternoon, Nigeria, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia. Good afternoon to you, Nigeria, Egypt, Tunisia. Good afternoon to you, Somalia, Ethiopia, Eritrea. Good afternoon, Africa. Welcome to Africa in Business on Channel Africa. I'm Tami Ngubeni. This is where you get the African perspective. It's where we meet to look at the latest in news, sport and business. It's gone exactly 8 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. Here's an open invitation for you to engage with us on the various social media platforms. On X, Facebook, Instagram and YouTube, you'll find us at Channel Africa 1. If you have any stories that you'd like to share, stories that you believe would be of interest to our listeners, both on the African continent and in the diaspora, do send us your emails to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Welcome to Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
Connecting Africa to the world. Africa in Business with Tami Ngubeni brings you the latest insights on Africa's economy.
Now we begin here this afternoon, certainly very topical. I'm sure not only the Americans are looking forward to this, but also South Africa and all of Africa. As South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa, who is currently in Washington, D.C. for a working visit with U.S. President Donald Trump. They are due to meet. The two heads of states are meeting to enhance the strategic relationship between the two countries. The South African government says the meeting will focus on strengthening cooperation. The African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, as well as the Expropriation Act are set to top the agenda. For more on this, we are joined this afternoon on the line by Casey Sprake. She's an economist at Anchor Capital. A very good afternoon to you, Casey. Welcome to Africa in Business. Good to have you with us.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Perhaps let's start about why this meeting is so important. But how important is it really for this meeting between Trump and Cyril Ramaphosa in mending US-SA diplomatic ties and possibly the formation of a new bilateral trade agreement?
Oh no, it's hugely important, and the significance I don't think can be stated enough. So as we know, the last few months, particularly since the beginning of the year, with the new Trump administration coming to power, we've seen the relationship between South Africa and the US really decrease and come on the downside. I mean, it's always been factious at best. We've always stood at different sides of the ideological coin, but it's extremely kind of extreme pressure this year. We've seen that through the rhetoric around a lot of South Africa's stance on geopolitical issues, and of course with the trade tariffs. And whether we like it or not, at the end of the day, South African economy is hugely dependent on the US. Around 9% of our exports go through to the US, and that's not to even state the investment relationship as a whole we have within South Africa. I mean, for example, and a lot has been said about the argument around the tariff situation. But if we look back in 2023, US investment in South Africa stood at nearly 2 trillion. That's equivalent to 29% of South Africa's GDP. So again, it just really serves to underscore the importance of keeping these linkages with the US.
Now, following the announcement of the trade tariffs, Casey, you'll remember the rhetoric was that AGOA, for all intents and purposes, is as good as gone. Do you believe that this meeting will somehow salvage whatever could be left of AGOA, but also remembering the threats and the rhetoric pre-tariffs, the fact that South Africa's involvement in AGOA was being evaluated? Talk to us about how you believe this meeting might influence AGOA moving forward.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, you just alluded to it now. I think we've come to the end of the road with AGOA specifically. Even before the whole sort of tariff argument came up, I think we were at the risk of losing AGOA regardless. I think it's worth bearing in mind that the AGOA Act in its entirety is actually due for renewal, I think, come September this year. So that wouldn't be just for South Africa, but for a lot of our other regional African counterparts as well, who are all part of this agreement. And, under the current Trump administration and our perspective on these sort of, preferential trade agreements, I believe that the AGOA Act within itself won't be renewed regardless. I mean, that would be for the entire African continent. And then second to that, you mentioned, the sort of contention of South Africa being part of the act in the first place. When AGOA was first put together, the idea was to help give that preferential access to US markets for much smaller, more struggling sort of African nations. South Africa has been, for all intents and purposes, just too big and strong of an economy to have been part of the act in the first place. A lot of members within the Senate and Congress across the US believe that we should never be part of the act to begin with. That goes for the likes of Nigeria as well. So on those two levers already, I believe, we are at the end of the road with AGOA. Add on to that, the sort of diplomatic tensions and spats that we've had with the US administration. I think AGOA is done. What we can really hope for from this latest rounds of meetings, particularly with President Ramaphosa tomorrow, is just hopefully a softening stance on the tariff rate. That's really what we need at the moment. As we know, the latest rounds of tariffs are frozen for the 90 days. I know, bare minimum, we will at least get at least 10% tariff rate to the US. If we can stop that from increasing any further above that, I think that would be a win for South Africa.
And just talking about the impact and the possible impact of the withdrawal of AGOA, there are over 6,500 or so products that fall under AGOA, allowing them duty-free access to the United States. What are the economic as well as the economic impact and the social and geopolitical consequences of this withdrawal?
Yeah, I think a lot of it would depend on the type of the nature of the agreement sort of made going ahead. So the two sectors that really stood to benefit or have always benefited under AGOA has been, of course, the agricultural industry and then the car-making auto parts industry. And they really got the best rates of tariff lines through this AGOA agreement. But I think it's important to remember that, a blanket tariff rate doesn't necessarily mean all goods. We've already seen with the latest ideal suggestion of the tariffs coming from the US that some goods will be exempt or which hopefully will stay so. And I think those exclusions are particularly relevant to South Africa because they include your platinum group metals, your PGMs and gold, and then auto parts, aluminium and steel will also be exempt from these sort of reciprocal tariffs. So that's very important for our key sort of exports to the US. Of course, societal impact. I mean, you can talk for hours on that. South Africa already has a massive growth and unemployment problem in this country. Losing rates to luxury sort of or strong markets that we see in the US, that just dampens our opportunity to grow extra jobs for businesses to grow and develop, provide these job opportunities, and just keep those sort of money sluicing in the economy. We also have a very notable event tomorrow in terms of the third iteration of the budget. As we well know, where we got quite a significant shortage of revenue at the moment, putting in a situation where companies are not able to turn as much profits and contribute to your corporate income tax, a massive revenue stream for the South African economy and our fiscus at large. Those are the concerns that we sort of have, and these sort of knockover spillover effects that feed through the economy.
And you talk about jobs, and just bearing in mind that when Ethiopia was withdrawn from AGOA in 2022, they lost over 100,000 jobs or so in the textile industry. So one will have to wait and see what type of impact that will have on the likes of South Africa that already has an excessively high unemployment rate. But Casey, as we wrap up today, I'd like us to talk about I'd like us to talk about Elon Musk and the reports that are coming out that President Cyril Ramaphosa is somehow considering to, quote unquote, work around the BEE regulations for Starlink. Could you comment on that?
Yes, I mean, much like yourself, I've seen those reports starting to filter through this afternoon. Whether we know them they haven't been formalized just yet or to be 100% true, but I think that was not to be surprising. We know that's been a key sticking point for Trump, the Trump administration at large. The fact that Starlink cannot operate within South Africa due to these employment equity laws. The fact that Ramaphosa will probably try and find a turnaround through this. Obviously, of course, it raises questions for the Employment Equity Act at large. It's already sitting through multiple court cases and challenges as it stands already. But, for us to get these sort of relationships back online again, we're going to have to offer something of interest to Trump's administration. And I think a key point of that is Starlink. There's also been rumors, of course, or reports they will be offering extra gas rights within South Africa. So, yeah, we'll just have to see what comes out of those meetings and what Ramaphosa is able to sort of, pass of interest to Ramaphosa.
We will watch very keenly, Casey. Thank you very much for your insight this afternoon. Very much appreciated, ma'am. That's Casey Sprague. She's an economist at Anchor Capital as we wait with bated breath for that all-important meeting between the two heads of state. It's gone exactly 18 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African Time.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
Now, South Africa's Deputy President Paul Mashatile is in Paris on a working visit aimed at strengthening bilateral ties with France. The visit is expected to deepen cooperation between the two countries with a strong focus on expanding trade, investment and exploring new areas of partnership. This follows the recent 9th session of the France-South Africa Political Dialogue, co-chaired by International Relations and Cooperation Minister Ronald Lamola. Channel Africa's business reporter Innocent Samosa has more.
South Africa's Deputy President Paul Mashatile is in Paris, participating in the South Africa-France Investment Conference. The gathering aims to deepen cooperation between the two nations, particularly in infrastructure development, science, technology and innovation, as well as education and skills development.
We have enjoyed very warm relations with France over many years, bilateral relations. So once we finalize our trip, I said to the president, I'll do a working visit to France and be able to meet with the leadership of the country, because we want them to, not just businesses, we want the government also to commit to what we are doing. Because for me, trade is two ways. You come to South Africa to invest, South African companies come here to invest.
Deputy President Mashatile says South Africa is also working to strengthen the already close people-to-people ties between the two countries while boosting tourism flows in both directions. Meanwhile, the Minister of Small Business Development, Stella Tembisa Ndabeni, highlighted the importance of improving access to finance for small and medium enterprises.
Of course, in everything that we've spoken about as the big business, mine is to say, please don't close our doors, open space for small businesses in your different value chains. But most importantly, we are looking for partners in funding, because one of the challenges that we have in South Africa is access to financing by small and medium enterprises, which is followed by the access to markets. Those that we're talking about, Gibela, we do have an incubator that is busy with manufacturing of components of the trains.
France remains a key economic partner for South Africa. It is currently the country's 14th largest investor, with around 4,000 French companies operating locally. These firms are active in sectors such as financial services, renewable energy, rail, chemicals, oil and gas. South Africa's Minister of Transport, Barbara Creecy, also weighed in on opportunities for collaboration in the transport sector.
We need to sort out the logistics sector, and we need to make sure that rail becomes the backbone for the transport of people and goods. And accordingly, we have begun a very ambitious program of rail reform, which allows third-party or private sector investors to participate in both the freight and the passenger network situation for the first time in our history.
As South Africa and France strengthen their economic and diplomatic ties, this visit marks another step towards building strategic partnerships that can drive growth, innovation, and inclusive development on both sides. For Channel Africa News, I am Innocent Simosa in Johannesburg.
Stay ahead with Africa in Business, where Tamen Ngubeni unpacks your go-to source for Africa's economic trends and development.
It's gone exactly 23 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. Now, high unemployment rates, the rising cost of living have led some people to consider immigration for financial reasons. However, before you decide to move abroad, it is important to understand the potential impact of your debt on your immigration status, as well as outstanding debt, what this might have and what it might do to your legal and immigration plans. Some of the questions you need to ask yourself are, can you leave your home country if you still have unpaid debt remaining? Will your visa be denied because of debt? And what are the financial implications of going overseas with unpaid debt? For more on this, we're joined on the line by Benay Sega, Executive Head of Debt Busters. A very good afternoon to you and welcome to Africa in Business.
Thank you for having me on the show. It's great to be here.
I wonder, do many people actually consider their debt when deciding or thinking of immigrating? Is it top of mind for many people, have you found?
Absolutely not.
Instead,
it should be.
Instead, if it is top of mind, it's probably how do I leave this debt behind, right?
Yes, exactly. But it should be, because in the end, it's a liability, and it's something, especially in the globally connected world now. It might become an impediment, in terms of the new life you want to establish and wherever it is that you're going. So I think the main message is that you remain liable for your debt in South Africa, even if you leave, because, if you immigrate, that is different from what's known as financially immigrating to a country. And that is a different process that one needs to follow via getting the right clearances from the Revenue Authority, from SARS. And I think one needs to just treat that as quite an important thing. If you are going to immigrate, you need to consider all the implications before you do so.
All right. So I'm going to ask you to break this down for us. You mentioned that there are two different types of immigration for the purpose of this conversation. There's financial immigration, and then what is the other, and how do they differ?
It's physical immigration. As you say, if you win a lottery and they say, come tomorrow, you jump on a plane and you go to a new country, you establish everything from zero there. But that's different than what you leave behind. You're still liable for the money that you would be owing to the state here, or the money that you might be owing to a bank, for example, if you have a mortgage. You're still liable for all of those. Those don't expire. So I think that's what we mean. If you want to, if you want to not leave any debt behind, make sure that you make a plan to deal with it so that you can work towards eliminating that debt over a period of time. I think we understand that sometimes these opportunities come out with very short notice, that you have to take them. I think that's perfectly understandable. But don't assume that if you're physically not in South Africa, that you're not liable for your South African debt anymore.
That debt, as you say, will follow you. So what are the things that one needs to do in regards to their debt before immigrating from the country that they're living in?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to understand what type of debt you have. This may sound simple, but know who you owe money to, including state organs. For example, if you owe money to SARS, or if you owe money on your SABC TV license, those debts are not going to expire for 30 years. That's 30. So even if you leave and you're gone for 30 years, you're still liable for them. And, often they will try to chase you to find you in other countries. So understand what you owe money to, whether it's for rates to a municipality or whether it's the revenue authority or whether it's a bank or a lender. So make sure that you keep a good list of who you owe what in terms of the amounts and what would be your backup plan to pay down that debt. If you own a house and you're paying rates on it, and if you're not going to, if you're going to immigrate and not come back, you should probably make a plan to sell that house or the flat that you own so that you are not liable for the rates in the long term. And I mean, those things are all possible, of course, but just I think our number one advice would be make a list of, the debts that you owe, and then secondly, make a plan on how to work towards getting those down to zero.
You mentioned that there is debt, for example, if you're owing rates, etc., that will follow you for 30 years. We do know that debt normally does prescribe, though, after 3 years. Wouldn't that apply, that 3-year prescription? And give us the difference between debt that doesn't prescribe and debt that does.
Yeah, all debt prescribes. It's just a different timeline. So the 3-year one, which is more commonly known, and I'm sorry to say, I think sometimes people are misinformed by this, is often going to be unsecured personal debt. But something that you owe to the state, for example, I gave the example of money that you may owe to SARS. That is not going to expire for 30 years. Even if it does, the Revenue Authority has the right to, kind of demand the money. So depending on the type of debt, and bonds would also be part of that. So if you don't pay towards your bond for 3 years or more, it's not going to disappear. So I think understand what type of debt you have, and if it's going to be prescribed along the timelines that you have in mind. Chances are, if you are in the game of owning a property, that's not going to go away anytime soon. So, I think that's probably what we need to consider.
And what recourse does the law have in collecting that debt, even in your absence?
Yeah, I think if in your absence, you will probably still be notified on email that you owe money, depending on who you owe money to. And, if you acknowledge the debt, you're still liable for it, like we said. Physically speaking, if somebody is if you are going to move to another country and you're going to stop paying your South African debt, at some stage they will probably stop chasing you, whoever it is that you owe money to, except for the state organs, as we said. But the reality is that may impair your ability to establish a new credit history in your new country, because what also happens is many of the credit bureaus are global. And it may be that they look at your South African payment history, when you're trying to access credit in other countries. So I think the best plan is to actually honor and repay back the money that you borrowed rather than running away from it.
And can outstanding debt actually have an impact on one's immigration processes?
It doesn't. The two are separate. So, in terms of immigrating to a new country, it should not have any impact on you, as far as regulations go. But, we mentioned the financial immigration. I think part of the reason to make sure that you put your house in order is also to make sure that in the long term you're not paying taxes in multiple places, because that's also a possibility. So, no, if you owe money to somebody, that's not going to stop you from being able to immigrate to another country physically. But if you don't, honor your debt repayments, then it will probably make life a little bit difficult from a financial perspective for you in the long term.
Vinay Sega, thank you very much for that very sober advice this afternoon. We thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's Vinay Sega, he's executive head of Debt Busters, making it very clear that, yes, you may physically try to leave the country that you are living in, but that debt certainly does follow you. You still remain liable for every debt in your resident country. And yes, some debt may prescribe after 3 years, others after 30 years. So whichever way you look at it, you will have to pay back at some time or the other. It's gone exactly 4:30 Central African time. Let's head over now to the markets desk, where Nosipho Zuma is standing by with the latest financial indicators.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Tommy. Good afternoon. In your business indicators this hour, $1 is trading at 18.05 in South Africa. In Botswana is trading at 13.39. In Namibia, it is trading at 18 Namibian dollars 05. The Zambian kwacha is trading at 26 kwacha 916 to the US dollar. In Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 517. In Ethiopia, it is trading at 134 bir 819. In Uganda, it is trading at 3,000 shillings 637. In Tanzania, it is trading at 2,000 shillings 681. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 602. In Egypt, the dollar is trading at 50 Egyptian pound 02. In Tunisia, it is trading at 3 dinar. In Algeria, it is trading at 132 dinar 62. In Morocco, the dollar will cost you 9 dirham 11. In Angola, the dollar is trading at 912 kwanza, while the Congolese franc is trading at 2,851 to the US dollar. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,239 and platinum at $1,009 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $65.19 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Zuma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
And heading over now to the sporting desk for the latest from the business of sport. Here is Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Tammy. In our business of sport, it's football news. The second term of the Confederations of African Football President Patrice Motsepe continues to rake in financial backing for African football after the launch of a partnership with the European Union in Cairo, Egypt. The 2-year deal, estimated worth over millions of dollars, was announced at a function held at the EU residency in Cairo and will see the two entities partnering for the African Cup of Nations, Women's AFCON 2024 and CAF Schools Championship. European Commissioner for International Partnerships Joseph Sikela says the main aim is to see over 33,000 schools in Africa benefiting from this partnership. Let's hear from EU Commissioner Sikela and CAF President Motsepe.
The second part of the program is to support and to protect, really to protect the young players basically in the transformation period where basically they are thinking about, for example, going abroad and to play in the foreign ligas. So simply to give them the right support, including the legal support, in order to make such a transfer basically mainly beneficial for them.
Well, the biggest investment we can make as Africans is to invest in our youth. And we started the African Schools Football Championship a few years ago. It was actually a consequence of what we had started in South Africa, where the Motsepe Foundation had over many years supported schools football. And we made a donation of $10 million to the schools football on the African continent. It's a great honor for us that the European Union, which is one of the most respected institutions representing the most successful and the most prominent combination of nations coming together under the EU. And they have seen it as important to partner with us. It has never happened before, and that's why it's a huge vote of confidence by the European Union in the governance, the transparency, the ethics, but also just the significant investment in our youth. We want to use football to create an exciting future for our young boys and girls, but also to use football as an important tool for education, to provide the best possible education to our young boys and girls, and again through football to emphasize values like integrity, hard work, pursuit of excellence in education, and also just honesty and ethics and governance, the sort of values that are important.
And on to motor racing. The first stage of the South African Safari Rally has kick-started in Lichtenburg in South Africa's Northwest Province. The South African Safari Rally, which marks the third round of the prestigious World Rally Raid Championship, motorsport history in the country, attracting approximately 100 participants across the different classes. While the world-renowned Sun City Resort is the official host, the 5-day event includes various courses across the Northwest. Senior Manager for Retail at the Northwest, which is one of the sponsors, Bertus Jacob, says this will boost the local economy.
It's a privilege for us as NWK to be part of this SA Rally International Championships. We are the official fuel partner for them during this event. And we are involved because our communities are important to us. The rally passes through our communities and our province where our businesses are being run and operating in. So we want to uplift our communities as well. And hopefully by doing this, we'll stimulate the economy in the province.
For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lengwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. From markets to innovation. From markets to innovation. Africa in Business with Tami Ngubeni covers it all. With Africa's future in focus, Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
It is exactly 4:38 Central African time. Thank you very much to File Lengwati there for the business of sport. Quite interesting there. We heard from Patrice Motsepe talking about AFCON, talking about football specifically, and news surfacing this past weekend that there's a possibility that he may be vying for presidency within the African National Congress. Still speculative, but certainly word is on the ground. Another instance there of business and politics potentially conflating. But we shall watch that very closely and see where it goes. Do send us your comments, your views, as well as any interesting stories that you would like us to cover for you here on Africa in Business. You can send us your comments on X, Instagram or YouTube. You'll find us there at Channel Africa 1, and on Facebook we are at Channel Africa. In just a moment we focus on entrepreneurs and a funding summit that's about to take place in a short while.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
So Empower Entrepreneurs Funding Summit, which is scheduled to take place on the 30th of May, is an event that provides a unique platform for 1,500 vetted entrepreneurs to explore funding avenues. One of their partners, Savant Technology Incubator, says it's committed to accelerating the commercialization of deep tech startups by strengthening the broader venture support ecosystem by cultivating strategic partnerships between startups, investors, corporates and industry enablers. For more on this, we joined on the line by the CEO of Savant Technology Incubator, Thapelo Richuhule. A very good afternoon to you, so welcome to Africa in Business. Good to have you with us.
Thanks, Tami, and thanks for pronouncing my name quite correctly, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you very much. I shall accept that with much grace. Now, let's get straight into business. As Savant Technology Incubator, you say that you committed to the growth of startups, largely by ensuring that they've got access to structured funding, that they also have market opportunities that enable them to scale successfully. Could you tell us more about the work that you do and exactly how you go about assisting these startups?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, this is quite a space that personally I'm very motivated to be in. As an entrepreneur myself, we normally find ourselves in situations where
We're still with you, sir?
Yeah. So we find ourselves in situations where there's a huge gap between support of startups and actually the commercialization of these startups. So the things that you have mentioned in your recap is that we always come from an ecosystem building perspective. We have realized that at a very early stage, these businesses are not supported in a coherent manner. You find technical businesses being developed in isolation of the market. And what you get out of that is solutions that go out there looking for solutions. So as Africans, we are in a very advantageous position, while others can look at it as a negative, with negative connotation in terms of owning the African problems, because we live those problems and we know where it's lacking, but we always import solutions. So where Savant comes in is that understand those problems and make sure that you design solutions that accurately address the problems. And I think there's no one who's better positioned to do that than our African youth and women-led businesses in general.
Are there any specific sectors maybe that you look at for funding? And at what stage of development or operations does the business need to be in order for you to consider funding them?
Yeah, good question. We normally see support coming at Series A, which is quite later stages of business development. But where we come in, we've got a continuum in Savant that starts from ideation stage up until the companies go into an international stage. So we've got programs that assist these founders with leadership skills, with fundamental governance principles that they need to be imparted to these founders. So our approach is both the technical development in terms of technologies, as well as the founder development themselves, because we always find those very isolated in many instances. So we assist this startup to move from ideation, prototype, up until they get to market, interact with the market, understand the problems. And the most important part is then bringing the ecosystem together, ensuring that we've got funders, we've got corporates, we've got DFIs in terms of government. Overall, we try to get the public-private partnership working instead of assisting startups in isolated, KPI-informed approach.
Now, the Empower Entrepreneurs Funding Summit, which is taking place on the 30th of May, which sectors are going to be looked at? Could you take us through perhaps the Poikikos or the mixture of different funders that are going to be there in order to be able to cater for different types of entrepreneurs?
Yeah, good. I think what is good about us and our partnership with Empower is that looking at technology businesses and like hardware and deep tech, we are more sector agnostic. So we look at any business that is actually solving a tangible problem. We're not necessarily looking at energy. We're not looking at health tech. It's a combination of all those startups. I think the selective measure that we use, it's more of the question is, are you solving a real problem? And we go and intervene in terms of understanding the problem, ensuring that these founders understand these problems. So all founders working across different sectors are welcome into the summit, and there will be a whole host of potential investors that will be working on those specific sectors.
And what ought one to expect when they come to the summit? Are they going to be pitching opportunities, or have there been projects perhaps that were earmarked before this actual summit that will then be showcased?
Yeah, there are some projects that will be showcased, but for the most part, there will be panels that will be discussing very instrumental or very sector-specific sections where we always want to attract founders to be solving those real problems, your water problems, your energy problems, and your circular economy issues. So we look at those kind of panels that will discuss more deeper problems so that founders, while they work in their innovations, they are more informed by the real problems on the ground.
As you said, it's all about innovating for problem solving. It's not always just about the bottom line, but I guess the bottom line is also informed by how well you solve a problem, because that's how the market will gravitate towards you. But back to yourselves as Savant, you are currently in the process of creating an environment where Africa's deep tech entrepreneurs are able to thrive and to drive a meaningful economic impact. Could you take us through some of those measures and interventions?
Right, yeah. So at Savant, we've got like 3 different organizations. We've got the Technology Incubator, which I'm the CEO of. At that stage, we look at ideation companies that have got a usable or a table prototype that we support them in terms of linking them with our technical partners to develop an MVP. So we are when we look at what we do, our foundation is more on the lean approach in terms of developing these businesses, simply because of the limited access to capital that is seen across Africa. So we ensure that when they develop these products, they are done in a very lean way to get to a solution much quicker. That's what we do in the Technology Incubator, where we develop those ideas. We ensure that we develop the founders themselves. But we've got the Savant Capital or Savant Fund Manager that has got the funds that the fund, which is Series A, and we're looking to fund to raise the second fund. What happens there is pure commercial money that comes into those businesses. So one of the challenges when Technology Incubator was founded is that we find a lot of businesses where founders are mostly, we call it grant junkies or competition-minded kind of founders. So we try and make sure that whatever businesses they are working on, they do it with a commercial mind and ensure that when an investor comes with a VC and they start to ask those commercial questions, while they care about the problem that you're solving, they want to see that there will be return in the funds that they give you. So that's where the Savant Capital comes in, where it's pure commercial money. We invest for equity return, while in the Technology Incubator, it's more of attracting corporate funds, attracting TFIs. We work alongside the likes of Technology Innovation Agency and CEDFA and other foundations that we actually partner with to try and get that those funds that are more for developing or de-risking technologies. We also have then the accelerator, which is our build program currently running. There we try and get investment readiness for these founders, because we understand that some founders won't come from our continuum. Some will come right later into stages where they are raising commercial funding. But again, there's a huge gap in Africa where founders don't really understand first what they need. Sometimes it's not necessarily funds, but it's more of support, or more of support in terms of them communicating their business value proposition, and that is both to the investor and to the customers of the solution that they're selling. So there's sort of a huge continuum that we work on, understanding the stage and requirements of those businesses.
So as we wrap up this afternoon, details for those who are able to attend on the 30th of May, and is this open to anyone, everyone, irrespective of where on the continent you may be?
Yeah, the event will be live streamed, as well as going onto the Empower website for registration. It's a paid event, so you will get all the details on that website.
And Empower, by the way, is EMPOWA, so not the ER one. Mr.
Correct.
Tabelo Rachule, thank you so much for your time and your insight, and wishing you a very successful summit on the 30th.
Thank you. At the core of what we do is basically supporting these startups.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time there. It's the Empower Entrepreneurs Funding Summit taking place on the 30th of May. It's gone exactly 10 minutes to 5 p.m. Central African time. This is Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
Hello, Africa. We would love to hear your voice on our radio station. Be part of the fun and send a shout out or greeting message to your loved ones and your favorite Channel Africa presenters. Whether you're in Africa, the diaspora, or anywhere else around the globe, we want to hear your voice. Send your shout out message by sending an email to info@channelafrica.co.za or send them to our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. Help us diversify our sound with your voice. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
Inlit Africa kicked off today at the Cape Town International Convention Centre in South Africa's Western Cape Province. The 3-day meeting brings together over 6,000 delegates, including utility executives, policymakers, investors and technology innovators. The event aims to address Africa's pressing energy and water challenges through strategic discussions, technological showcases and investment opportunities. Now, Standard Bank's business and commercial banking executives are participating at this year's event. To talk to us more about this meeting and the bank's participation is Manesa Alagbaso, Executive Head for Business Ecosystems and Sustainability at Standard Bank. A very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Africa in Business.
Good afternoon, Tammy.
Now,
good afternoon to your listeners.
Thank you. Now, this event comes at a time when load shedding is unfortunately making a comeback in South Africa. What does South Africa need to do to avoid the crippling blackouts that seem to be back now?
Tony, I think load shedding is only an occasional problem. Whether it's South Africa or any other country in Africa, energy security is a need, and energy access is a need. So whatever that is being done now is not necessarily a reaction to load shedding alone, but a holistic reaction to the energy security need of the country. And that energy needs to be stable, it needs to be reliable, and it needs to be affordable to the broader society as a whole, so that it's a more lasting solution than just reacting to load shedding.
Now, we know that blackouts are not unique to South Africa. It's something that's experienced in many parts of the African continent. We talk Nigeria, Zambia, Zimbabwe also experiencing the same type of challenges. Where should these countries' power utilities or even the other countries on the continent be looking to in order to ensure that there is not only enough power to their countries, but that it is sustainable and reliable?
All of the countries you've mentioned are undergoing the same energy transition journey, including those that you did not mention, because the reality of Africa in today's day and age is without power, the continent cannot develop. The two are intricately linked. So we have this type of a developing continent for so long now, but what has become really apparent is without stable, sustainable power, the continent cannot develop. So this is a top priority for all of the African countries. And I do believe that they are paying the required attention to it, of course, within the resources they have and the resources they can mobilize. But there's no, I'm missing the fact that it is a top priority. And every country that I know is according it the required level of attention.
And what are the type of solutions that are coming out of a convention of this nature as far as electricity is concerned for the continent?
It's mostly renewable, of course, predominantly geared towards solar. But what is really encouraging is if you look back to a few years ago, the cost of these technologies are quite prohibitive. But fast forward to today and going forward, the cost of these technologies are becoming more and more affordable, whether you're looking at solar PVs, or you're looking at even EVs, and the battery technologies improving, the prices are coming down. So these are the things that are being showcased by all the technology providers at this conference, just to, again, encourage that shift towards energy that is more sustainable for the continent.
And what are the type of water solutions that are coming out? Because water is equally under pressure on the continent.
Exactly. I think one of the it's not only about availability of water. So key technologies that is being showcased are efficiency-related technologies. A smart metering that enables farmers and other users of water to be able to use exactly the right amount of water that is needed. But added to that is also technologies that allow for reuse, reduce, and recycling, so that at least this finite resource that is water, we can make as much use of what is available as possible compared to what you have today.
And as we wrap up, could you talk to us about Standard Bank's participation at Enlit Africa 2025?
We have been participating for a few years now, and we are really proud to partner Enlit Africa, because if you know us very well, we always say Africa is our home, we drive our growth. So we want to play a significant role in Africa's transition to low carbon economy across all of the countries. So for us, it's more than just a participation at a conference. But again, it's an opportunity for us to take stock of where we are, what progress has been made, and importantly, have very transparent, open discussion on realities on the ground. It's easy to talk about numbers and all of these happening at a high level, but when you have a gathering like this, we're able to engage various stakeholders and talk about the practical realities on the ground for the Africans that need power to be able to sustain their livelihood and also be able to drive economic activities.
Mr. Alakboso, thank you so much for your time and your insight this afternoon as we continue discussing what really is a continental area of concern, that is energy as well as water. We thank you for your time.
My pleasure, Termini. Have a good day.
Have a great one, sir. That's Manasa Alakboso. He's Executive Head, Business Ecosystems and Sustainability at Standard Bank. He brings us to exactly 4:57 Central African Time. Bonjour, Joël. Comme ça va?
Ça va et toi?
Très bien, merci.
Ça va? Bonjour à tous les auditeurs.
And what's on your agenda aujourd'hui?
Ok, sur Vue d'Afrique aujourd'hui, il sera question, et ce pour les grands titres, de la Cour internationale de justice qui tranche en faveur de la Guinée équatoriale dans le conflit territorial qui l'opposait au Gabon.